Hi, everyone. It's so good to be with you again. Thank you for joining us for the 11th episode of the GSS Jamaica Industry Podcast. I can't even believe that we've done so many episodes, and we have really enjoyed the feedback we've received, and we continue to try to keep you up to date on what's going on in all that's GSS Global Services sector. So today, our theme is training for success, the need for apprenticeship across productive sectors. And our discussion will be highlighting the impact of the apprenticeship program in the global services sector and the government of Jamaica's intention to replicate across other sectors and the contribution of such a program to the pipeline of talent in Jamaica. Allow me to welcome our guest, Simon Perryman from the UK, Kamesha Turner from the Jamaica Manufacturers Exporters Association, and Marlon Johnson from Hard Trust and NSTA. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Great. All right, so why don't we start with some introductions? Ladies first, as always. Kamesha, please give us your title, the role you play at JMEA, and then we'll continue with Simon and then Marlon Johnson. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Kamesha Turner-Blake. I'm the Executive Director of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, which is the largest business development organization in Jamaica. We provide technical support, advocacy, promotion of export and manufacturers in Jamaica.
Thank you, Kamesha. Simon?
Hi. Good morning, everyone. It's Simon Perryman, and I'm actually the chairman of a large technical college in the UK called Barnsley College in the north of England. But I'm also a consultant on skills issues, and I've worked pretty closely with Marjorie and Marlon and Kamesha and other colleagues in Jamaica in the past to help us set up the Global Services Apprenticeship Programme. I've done similar work in other countries ranging from India to Sri Lanka. So I'm really looking forward to working with you this afternoon, and this morning rather, sorry.
Right, great. Thank you, Simon. And we're looking forward to hearing more about your experiences and sharing best practices. Marlon.
Great morning, everyone. Marlon Johnson, Senior Programs Director, Hart NSTA Trust. My portfolio responsibilities are all things apprenticeship and, of course, MSME support. Many persons are not aware that the trust also offers grant to micro businesses. And eventually, I'll tell you that correlation between micro businesses or businesses, MSMEs, and, of course, apprenticeship.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So, let me start by setting some context through the Global Services Sector project and what we've done. So to date, we have enrolled 3,541 apprentices. Of that number, 2,837 are enrolled in supervisory management. And because this was recently introduced in 2023, 704 in leadership and management. And actually, the project is responsible for upskilling approximately 5% of an estimated gross employment of about 62,000. But how did we get here? Early days, let me take you back to beginning of 2019 when shortly after we got the loan executed in January. We wanted, of course, to implement an apprenticeship framework that we hoped would resonate with the industry. First order of the day, I should add, before the loan was executed, was to establish a Global Services Sector Skills Council. And you're going to hear in a minute how important and what that decision was and why that, in retrospect, was probably one of the key decisions ever made in the project. Shortly after that, however, we engaged with Simon Perryman, chairman of the Barnsley College in the UK. And for those of you who are not aware, Barnsley College was voted one of the top performing colleges in the United Kingdom in apprenticeship program. And we asked for his support to help us to develop a framework that we hoped would resonate. He did, and that was presented to the Sector Skills Council, and it was endorsed by the Sector Skills Council. And then we took the task of trying to determine, okay, what would be the first program that we would roll out for the global services sector? Well, it turned out that that was a pretty easy discussion. As we presented to the Sector Skills Council at that time, they said to me, Marjorie, we want a program that supports supervisory management. There's a gap in this tier, what we call the mid-level management tier, and we want to develop a program that resonates. And basically, the Sector Skills Council, let me remind our audience, is comprised of industry leaders, academia, and some representation from government. Hard Trust NSTA sits on that council, JAMPER sits on that council. I should point out, however, they are non-voting members. So really, the majority of the votes come from industry because we believe that industry drives and understands the needs of what the skills requirements are. So basically, we developed the supervisory management program from scratch, a very rigorous program, a very rigorous process, and then asked for Heart NSTA's support to develop the curriculum. To date, it has been a very successful program in the GSS year after year since its implementation. The apprentices themselves have said that they feel the curriculum is robust. They feel that they can apply the skills not only to the global services sector as an industry recognized certification, but also transferable to other sectors. And with that, we feel proud at the GSS level that we have contributed in this part to the upskilling. But let me now turn my attention to my wonderful guests and just get their perspective. Let's start with you, Simon, on what are some of the areas that should be considered when we are developing apprenticeships to target these skills gaps in any country, any situation?
Yeah, thanks very much, Marjorie. From my point of view, we need to think about professional training and skills development in the sense that it must be absolutely up to date, super relevant, must meet a real business need, and help the industry to move forward economically and from a productivity point of view. It absolutely needs to be owned by that industry, which is why I think the Sector Skills Council approach is so important. And I think we need to get industries to think about skills as an investment decision in the same way as they think about any other investment that they might want to make in capital equipment. And like any investment decision, it needs proper planning and proper execution, in the sense that it needs to be delivered to a high and consistent standard. And that's where, organizations like Heart come in really in helping to get that delivery right. And then the impact needs to be evaluated in terms of both the individual benefits, what do individuals get out of it, but also what do the businesses get out of it, and what does the economy as a whole get out of it as a result of going down this road. And it's, for me, the thing that's sort of interesting about it is it's not about the individual investment by a single company. It's about the industry coming together to make a collective investment in skills to build a talent pipeline for that industry. And what do we need for that, really? Well, we need business leaders in the industry to join together in creating this Sector Skills Council approach. And they then need to agree priorities, make their investment plan, and then we need to design high quality programs, which should be based on best international practice. And then we need this delivery to a high and consistent standard. And for me, there's a few key things in that. So one is about attention to detail. What I've noticed in my own college is the attention to detail in every aspect of delivery is absolutely fundamental in terms of getting the quality right. Secondly, we need simple, modern, non-bureaucratic systems to support the program, which can be quite a challenge in any country, I suspect. And that means quick decision making and the ability to adapt as we go along, rather than just have a program and stick with it, never mind how well it's going. And we need the right kind of incentives in place to encourage both people and businesses to take part. And for all of that, I think underneath that, what it's all about really is leadership, vision, passion, and commitment to succeed.
Right, Simon. Thank you. And we're gonna dive a little deeper in what you shared. One of the points you made that really resonated is that it is really an investment decision by the industry, because early on, JAMPRO had made that correlation. One of the key criteria for investors coming into a country is whether or not there is a stable talent pool, talent pipeline that can mitigate against attrition, that can be upskilled quickly. And in the case of the global services sector, it is well known. This is perhaps one of the most dynamic sectors in the sense that its skills requirements are constantly evolving. And because they're linked heavily to technology, constantly requiring persons to be reskilled or upskilled. So Kamesha, your thoughts on what are the areas that should be considered when developing an apprenticeship, when developing apprenticeships to target skills gap?
Well, Simon absolutely touched on some very good points. You can hear that he's really an expert in the area. For the manufacturing industry, I believe we're one of the practical areas that, an apprenticeship model is very good and hands-on for us. What we're looking at right now, definitely it has to be an industry-led approach. So the industry must inform the training institution as to what our needs are and what, for instance, the future is looking for us. Because, for instance, right now we're doing a lot of investment in manufacturing, and we have to look at the type of machinery and the skills that would be necessary to drive those machinery.
Yes.
So for us, we have to have a development framework right now, a pathway that is very clear that says, okay, this is where we're at. However, in 3 to 5 years' time, this is where that we're moving towards. And then from there, we can create those training programs that will be necessary. It is critical too for us to set the standards from the industry standpoint. So this is where, again, as it relates to leadership from the industry and working in consensus with the training institution is quite critical. Now, when we look at the various levels too, that is something too that we have to consider when it comes on to our apprenticeship model. Jamaica has had an apprenticeship program for many, many years. However, when we look at to see how is it serving us, I believe this is where it's critical for us now to do an assessment of the program. Because when we look at models, for instance, in the UK, we're seeing where it is serving them better, where it's not just on a low level, but it moves along a continuum. And so these are the things for us that we have to look at for manufacturing to ensure that apprenticeship works for us.
Thank you, Kamesha. And I'm tempted to tack that on to Marlon's question, but let me give him a minute to just respond generally, and then we get in, because I think Kamesha just opened up a whole nother set of discussions which I'm happy to engage in. But Marlon, your thoughts please on this.
Well, thank you very much, Marjorie. Thank you very much, colleagues. It's important as a country, and I must applaud Jamaica. Sometimes we don't applaud ourselves. Jamaica, as Kamesha said, we would have had apprenticeship around from as early as 1954. The apprenticeship law came out in 1954. And of course, would have come a far way since then, some 60 plus years ago. Now, there are some critical things that must be in place, and I think we have most of them. Of course, you need to have that legislative framework, and of course, you have the the HEART Act of 2019, which was revised, you need to be very clear on your social dialogue. And of course, the sector council provide that. We need to understand the varied roles and responsibilities. And again, as we go along in the social dialogue, we'll work out those roles and responsibilities. And a critical part of apprenticeship is the finance. And Simon kind of touched on that earlier about how is it financed? And of course, the varied sectors must see it as an investment, like any other investment. So those are some critical variables that must be in place, 4 critical variables that must be in place for any quality apprenticeship program. Let me just hasten to say, Marjorie, we must make a clear demarcation between formal apprenticeship and informal apprenticeship, because in many instances, in our Jamaican context, there are many spaces that you have an apprenticeship or apprenticeship type program, but it's critical that persons understand the importance of a formal, agile, robust apprenticeship system. So we have to make that demarcation between the informal and the formal apprenticeship systems.
Thank you, Marlon. But I think now that we are leaning, and that's coming up for discussion, really leaning towards and putting things in place to make apprenticeship a lot more formal, and to the benefit, of our country. But Simon, could you share with us, as you had helped us with the framework, and I know you had started to outline a lot, but just succinctly, what should be key considerations when structuring an apprenticeship program? So you had mentioned quality, you had mentioned that generally the framework should not, be bureaucratic and so on, but I actually want you to look at it more now as what would be your top 3 or 4 recommendations to productive sectors when considering embracing an apprenticeship framework?
So, I'm picking up on some of the things Kamesha's already been saying, really. I mean, it's absolutely essential, isn't it, that it's really, really clear what the need is and to pin that down. And I thought great points actually about it's not just about what now is, but especially when you're looking in manufacturing and digital economy and low carbon agenda and so on, world's changing very, very quickly. So you need to find a way of putting apprenticeship programs together that are absolutely up to date. So there's something really interesting about, for me, you should be looking around the world really at some of the most interesting stuff that's currently going on. And we're doing some good stuff in the UK, but people constantly pinch ideas from other people and put things together that are absolutely right in your own context, but actually need to draw on some of the existing best practice around the world really. And some of the other countries that are fantastic at this at the moment are Switzerland and obviously Germany always tends to come up, some of the Scandinavian countries. So it's worth doing a bit of a trawl to think when you're really clear what it is that's your absolutely priority for the skills that you want to put in place, then go and find some of the most interesting programs. But then there's something for me about the way in which you implement the program, which is absolutely fundamental, actually, and the support that's inside the program as well. We have in the UK, we have a few really basic, simple rules around what is and isn't allowed in our program. So there in the UK, have to be a 1-year program, and it has to be 8% on the job and 20% off the job. That's not necessarily what you would want in Jamaica, but it's the kind of issues that you need to wrestle with, I think. And then one of the things for me is really important is the support in the workplace for the students. So having mentoring in place is incredibly important, I think. So how you select the students, how you bring them into the program with the induction, how you make sure that they understand the program that they're on, setting them proper objectives, and then having the right supervision in place to make sure they get trained properly, but also that they've got some additional support through mentoring to protect them and to help them to get the best out they possibly can out of the program. because one of the challenges with apprenticeship is dropout. So, and I think you face some of that as well, but we do as well in the UK. I think in our college, 70% of kids get to the end of the program and complete fully. In the UK as a whole, not only about 50 or 60% do. So that's absolutely essential, I think, if you want to get the maximum you can out of the investment.
Thank you, Simon. Marlon, what was the distinction between, or what would you say is the distinction between the GSS Apprenticeship Programme and the Apprenticeship Programme that Heart Trust NSTA offered previously?
There are some clear distinction. One, the Sector Skills Council, and of course, for any apprenticeship program to work effectively, it must be industry-led. And this framework where we have a council in place that literally shape the curriculum. And that is critical. I know at the trust we have what we call lead groups. But this industry-led skills council, it's critical for the success because you're able to respond quicker. And that's one of the things, that's one of our limitations. In many instances, we were not able to respond as quickly. And of course, the model that GSS has, you're able to respond quicker to industry needs. And that's critical to the success of any apprenticeship program. So that's one. Secondly, it's key because normally, persons see apprentices as new entrants into the workspace. But the difference with this, with the GSS apprenticeship program, is the fact that the apprentices were existing members of these workspaces who needed upskilling and reskilling. And we use the tool of apprenticeship to do that upskilling and reskilling. So those are the two fundamental differences between the existing what persons know as RAP program, registered apprenticeship program, and of course the GSS apprenticeship program. So one, the apprentices were existing persons who needed upskilling and reskilling, and in our instance at the trust is normally new entrants into the workspace.
Okay, thank you. So Kamesha, continuing along that thought process, and yes, I think we have established industry definitely central to these considerations, right? How can we drive more sector engagement to address these local labor skills issues? What role do trade or sector associations like the JMEA play in responding to initiatives like the apprenticeship program?
Leadership. That's a key word that was mentioned earlier. As a business development organization, we have to buy into the program. We have to know it is a part of our strategic positioning. So for us here, we provide technical support, we provide advocacy, and we provide that hands-on support to manufacturers. But as it relates to how do we drive our own industry growth, this is where we have to identify champions for apprenticeship model. And persons will also have to know their role in this program. I noticed that Marlon spoke about having a mentor, having persons, a trainer, having someone in the organization too that will be holding together the whole model. I think Simon mentioned that as well. So as a business development organization, we will now have to know what the program entails and start even having buy-in from the high level champions at the high level, but also as it relates to the micro level, in the various companies, we have to identify people who will now be hands-on in the day-to-day guidance and running of the program. So just thinking about it, this is, a big ticket item as it relates to skills development for our industry, because we keep on talking about the labor shortage, which is impacting us quite significantly right now. So as a business development organization, we're here to champion, and we're here to just look at the program and know that it can work for us.
All right, I'm going to throw out a question to everyone, but I'm going to start again with you, Kamesha, because I hear you. And I want to talk about the theoretical considerations versus practical considerations. What do I mean by that? I understand that industry may have an interest, but even one of the challenges we had in the GSS program, just to be transparent, is that as there was a focus on core operations, there tended to be at times a distraction or or a diluted focus on what industry committed to do at the firm levels. So hear what I'm saying. At the Sector Skills Council, we had consistent and steady endorsement, right? But at the firm level, depending on size, depending on challenges or areas of focus at a particular time during the program, because you heard Simon, it's 12 months. And we know in the business world, it's that targets matter. And I can't think of another industry worse than the GSS right now. I mean, everything matters in terms of targets, but I'm sure it applies to other sectors. And so what would happen is that there were times when we had to step in as a project support unit to say that we felt that support wasn't being given, or there were things administratively that was needed to be done to support the apprentices that just didn't happen in the way we had hoped. So my question to everybody is, how can we mitigate this? How can we, it's not just words, but it's backed up by action and execution. Kamesha, I'm putting you on the, or, let me not do that. Let me throw it out. Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll go in again.
All right, great.
Buying at every level is crucial. So that is why I mentioned you might have a big CEO that is championing because he knows that he needs new workers to drive his machinery. However, if he does not have buy-in from that supervisor at the lower level within the organization to have a printer behind him, running and saying, okay, how do I need to do this? And likewise, to be following the guidelines. I know you said something about practical versus theoretical, but for the apprenticeship model to work, there are standards and there are structures. So that supervisor too will also have to buy in to say, these are all the critical skills this person will need within a year to say that they are performing at a level. So you need buying, you need incentives because, say, for instance, you spoke about target. Having someone around you that you have to be imparting knowledge to, it will take time. It will take away from your day to day that you'll have to dedicate to this person. So from the supervisory level, there needs to be some incentive to say that, okay, you'll be spending an extra 3 hours or so every week or every day to be imparting knowledge. So the CEO in that sense too will have to give them a little bit more to say that I am incentivizing you to buy in and train that person. So Marjorie, just thinking out, it's a lot. But I know Simon is the expert, so you go right in, Simon.
Yes.
A few things from me, really. One is I remember the chairman of a business I used to be the exec director of in the past. He used to always say to me, run with the fastest. So start with the people who are the most enthusiastic and get them on board and use their leadership to galvanize the sector to start with. And that's why one of the Sector Skills Council things is so important, really. But then, and when you start, don't start too big, but make sure that what you do initially works really, really well and to a very high professional standard, because then people sit up and notice that you're getting success and you're getting. And then what we find usually is that then jealousy kicks in, and the people who are not involved then want to be involved and can't understand why they're not involved. And then you start to get really, and that's just interesting to see how the GSS program has really picked up from small numbers in the very first months to increasing numbers every year. It's been really great to see that. And I think you can see some of that going on there. But the other thing I was going to say is you can't just rely on that. Actually, one of the things which I think we've learned is, especially with smaller companies, is they need a helping hand. So we have a team of business advisors really who go out into companies, and they just spend all their time. It's kind of like a sales team really, but they're not they're not sales team in a kind of transactional sales sense. They're actually about building partnerships between the training provider and, in our case, the college and the companies. And we just spend a lot of time building relationships with those companies, understanding what they're trying to achieve as a business, and then how we can help them by helping them with their talent pipeline. And when you start talking about a business problem, skills is often now on the first page of the challenges that they're facing. So and then actually beyond that, we have to make sure that we fulfill the promise that we offer them in terms of skills development by the follow through that we offer in terms of the quality of the training that we then provide and the attention to detail in the delivery process. Because if you let people down, they get extremely frustrated and the program starts to crumble very quickly. So, a lot of work around that. So, for example, we have, a software system that tracks every single apprentice and what every single apprentice is supposed to be working on this month and what targets they've got and where and what they need to be, what they're expected to do, by the end of that period. And then we monitor them every month to make sure they're actually delivering properly. So it's a professional program, designed professionally, delivered professionally. And when you set that level of standard in the first place, then the businesses understand quality. So when they see that, they kind of get on board with it and help to drive it through.
Thank you, Simon. Marlon?
I'll use two C words, collaboration and culture. When you create a culture of apprenticeship in any workspace, the buy-in comes. And I think we need collaboration for apprenticeship to work, as Simon said, particularly for the smaller firm, because while the apprentices are on this qualification pathway, sometimes these smaller firms don't have the setup to have them transition from one aspect of the qual plan to the other. And you need that partnership with maybe larger firms or other firms or other smaller firms so they can transition and move and rotate, a critical part of it. So you need that collaboration in place to ensure that consistency and that quality of the program comes out, and of course the apprentices win. It's important also that there is a very strong, robust monitoring and evaluation. The firms need to feel supported by the training body, or because when they have the apprentices there, and that monitoring is not felt by the firms, again, as Simon said, it can break down quite quickly. So that monitoring is of critical importance, just for all parts involved. The apprentices feel supported as if they are, they have that additional support, and of course the firms feel as if somebody is walking them and holding their hands through this process as they invest. So those are some critical variables that must be considered to ensure that apprentices, our apprenticeship grows in the workspace.
All right,
one other thing, sorry, I was going to say is that, we've had some experience over the last 12 months with some companies that we support who got dissatisfied with the delivery of the apprenticeship from our college. And what was really interesting for me was how you rescue the problem when it becomes an issue. So leaving it to fester is not a great plan. And what you need are people who have got the leadership, who have got the authority to actually be able to step in and just do whatever's necessary to sort the problem out. So, and it's really interesting that, I remember I spoke to one guy who runs a company, and he was just really frustrated that he thought his apprentices were going to be doing particular things, and then they didn't do them, and they didn't do them on time, and why was this happening? And what had actually happened, he was on the young person was on the wrong program really for what they wanted, but nobody had actually quite got to the bottom of it and said, what you need to do is, and we will do this for you, and actually we'll pay for it to get it sorted out. Just have the authority and confidence to actually be able to step in like that. And I think that's, that needs to be also in place with.
Yeah, no, thank you, Simon. It's so important to provide tools, to persons, to individuals, to the apprentices, to just understand the industry and to understand how to navigate it. One of the things that Kamesha, you mentioned Prento, and I'm just gonna, poke fun at you a little bit, but also grateful that through the GSS program, we have, I think, made that perception evolve to something where it's a program that persons want to be a part of, not because persons were not in previous apprenticeship program, but we heard recently, the ministers addressing this issue of skills. We feel that in our country, we feel that there appears to be a stigma with acquiring a skill versus getting a degree program, and this is one of the ways I believe that the apprenticeship program is addressing, because a skill is very important, and as recently talking about the role of the Sector Skills Council in the IDB Knowledge Week. Kamesha was there with me. And we were also talking about, these professionals who also have other skills, lash making and all sorts of other skills that they feel it's important to have for any reason. But there's certainly growth in having skills. So we do need to wrap up. I'm getting this prompt, that I'm running out of time, but this has been so interesting. And what I want us to discuss as our final segment is, what is the future of apprenticeship? Where do we see apprenticeship in productive sectors? Is there a role for apprenticeship in fostering growth in productive sectors and generally fomenting skills at the national level? Simon? I'm trying to see who spoke.
Yes, of course. I mean, for me, apprenticeship is the most effective way of training people in the world, but it's quite complicated, and it's not easy to deliver. But when it's delivered well, it is by far the most effective way that you can help people to develop skills, and you can help companies to become more productive, because people are learning highly relevant skills in the workplace with proper supervision and mentoring every day, and they're therefore right on the pulse of what's really needed by that company in that industry. But because they also do some off the job learning, they don't just do whatever that one particular company does right now. Then they actually have the opportunity to understand the whole industry and to see their place in the world and the opportunity for them to make a difference. And young people want to make a difference in the world, so it's important. The structures is really important to pedagogically in order to make sure that we give people the breadth as well as the depth of skills that they need. So go for apprenticeships, but really make sure that, as you have done with the GSS, is that you implement it with care and precision and professionalism.
Thank you, Simon. Marlon?
Well, thank you. I'm very optimistic and really looking forward to the future of apprenticeship, to the future state of apprenticeship. Now, as a trust, we are in the process of, establishing, with the help of Simon and Kamesha, establishing an Institute of Apprenticeship for Productivity, and you'll hear more about that. And the purpose of that, and I think Kamesha alluded to it earlier, that will enable us to scale apprenticeship. Currently, apprenticeship is seen as a lower level blue collar solution to labor. However, we want persons to understand and appreciate the fact that apprenticeship is a tool. And we see, again, while it's very difficult to deliver, it is the most effective way to transfer knowledge. And we want all our post-secondary institutions, the community colleges, and even our universities to start looking at apprenticeship as a tool to be used. And as we go forward and develop this institute, I am very, very, very optimistic to see apprenticeship being used by all the sectors. I know we're going to start with manufacturing and logistics and of course GSS, but I want to see it spiral into all other industries. And I'm so happy and optimistic about the future as we create this nice culture. And let me tell you, Because when we were in the UK and we stopped at a rest stop, a youngster came in for a job and they never asked for a job, colleagues. They asked to be an apprentice. And that's where we want to go, where the person who wants the job, they want to be an apprentice because they know it's a better route into the workspace. When the employer, their HR team want a cadre of person, they think about onboarding apprentices, and that's the kind of triangulation we want. And so all persons to see that everybody wins in apprenticeship. We meet our mandate, the trainees, the apprentices win, and of course the firms meet their labor needs. So it's really exciting times going forward, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you, Marlon. Kamesha?
Exciting times, absolutely. We have to be hands-on. We have to know that we're driving productivity, and productivity is about having the skills and the knowledge. We have been speaking about just having the knowledge, we're promoting degree programs. However, you can have those level of qualification, but it's the practical skills that the apprenticeship model comes with, where whenever you enter, and by the way, for the apprenticeship model, you enter the workforce first and get the knowledge and the practical skills together. And that is what makes it to be such a robust program. So at the end of the day, when you have a qualification, whether a master's or even a level one apprentice, you have everything that it takes to drive that company's productivity and growth. So for me, I am absolutely excited because we now are remodeling the program. We're rebranding. We're making it be 21st century ready and appealing to young people to say that you have a qualification, you have the skills, you have a career pathway, and this is what everybody wants, a prestigious career that you can have that knowledge and hands-on approach, and it will be good for the workplaces. So I am very enthused about what we're doing, and I look forward. When I look at the success of the GSS program, I look forward to it being in the manufacturing, logistics, and any other sector that we take on this approach.
Thank you, Kamesha. So I'm not letting everyone off the hook yet, even though I'm really being prompted now from a time perspective. One or two words or one sentence, you're speaking to future apprentices. Why should they want to be in an apprenticeship program, regardless of the sector? Real quick, let's go. Marlon.
Well, I tell the youngsters, it's almost a cheat code. When you compare yourself with your colleagues who enter classical education and training, you enter the financial markets early because you're getting a stipend off the bat. So you start to get a bank account and everything, and so you're way ahead of your colleagues. You're on a qualification pathway. You're getting job experience. You're being mentored. No, your colleagues in classical education and training, they can't beat that. So it's a literal cheat code for the apprentices when they enter an apprenticeship program.
Your time's up. Okay, Simon, please.
It's about careers and not just jobs, isn't it? It's about setting people up for life, giving them a real set of skills that they can build on and develop over time, and making people happy in their work and giving them a future.
Thank you. Kamesha, last word.
Advancement. You got money, you got skills, you got a career pathway, you're set for life. Just keep on growing and you'll be advancing in your career at a rapid level.
Thank you. And might I add continuous learning? Well, I really want to thank everyone for being such wonderful guests and participants in this morning's discussion. So just a quick recap on all the points that there are so many to take away, really. An apprenticeship program has to be a quality program. And for productive sectors, to excel in these programs, it helps to have a champion, right? But it also helps for the industry to have an understanding, to have a clear pathway for the growth of their industry, thereby influencing the type of training needs that they need to bring to the table or consider for their apprenticeship. Let's not forget mentorship. Apprentices, these are our young people. They need support. They need to understand. They are dealing with a lot of disruption. They want to be sure that they're making the right decisions. And so a mentorship program can give that kind of support. But Simon said you run with the fastest, and that's really where we are, today in this world, and Jamaica is no exception. We are, drivers, movers, and shakers, and Jamaica is such a country. We're going to go with those first. And then if you want to come on board at the latter end, we welcome you. But we are moving ahead in this direction because skills are important for our country. We must embrace continuous learning. We must have a country that can not only export services, but offer skills to investors, offer skills that resonate, that are relevant, and represent what the global trends are. Firms are not to be left out. We understand, and I think there's a role here, Marlon, for ILOs, to the point that Simon made of having business development persons going out and servicing and checking on smaller firms and giving them the support that they need. Let's all remember, though, that when we embrace an apprenticeship program, we must fulfill the promise. We must ensure that we're delivering quality of training. I love the idea that you mentioned, Simon, of a tracking system for the apprentices. Yeah. And I think that's something we're going to actively look at for any future apprenticeship program. And most importantly, I think because really at the end, this is like the foundation of anything that we implement or execute. Monitoring, constant monitoring, constant assessment to be sure that we're on the right track, that we are delivering the results for all involved. And I definitely agree with that. So there you have it. Apprenticeship seems to be the next future. Well, it's here. It's being implemented. I think what we're really saying is that we are going to expand apprenticeship programs across Jamaica to support the skills growth that this country really needs. Thank you, everyone. And
thank you for having us.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.